Savvy Business Radio, drawing out the best from our guests with our host, Christina Nichman.
Our guest today is Dr. Judy Morgan, a nationally renowned author, speaker, and holistic veterinarian, best known for healing her patients with whole foods, minimizing medications and chemicals. Dr. Morgan shares her exciting new book, Yin and Yang, Nutrition for Dogs, Maximizing Health and Whole Foods. Find out more about Dr. Judy Morgan at drjudymorgan.com. Hi, Dr. Judy Morgan. How are you today? Welcome to Savvy Business Radio.
I am phenomenal.
Well, I'm very happy to have you here. You've created a new cookbook for dogs. And I don't know if a lot of people know about this, but I'm a dog owner. So I always look for the healthiest version for my dog. And I found that for my little Henry here, that things with grain were really giving him a lot of gut issues, as with people. And I don't think people realize just how much preservatives and crap are in dog food. But you're here to help all the doggy owners out there cook better for their dog. Yin Yang Nutrition for Dogs. Love it. Share with the audience a little bit about your background before we go there.
So I'm a veterinarian. I've been in practice for over 34 years. It makes me feel old. But I've been in practice for a long time. And I started out, as all veterinarians pretty much do, as very, very, very traditional. And about 10 years into my career, I accidentally took a chiropractic course, which is a long story, but I accidentally took a chiropractic course. And the results that I was getting with my patients were so amazing that I said, there might be more to this alternative medicine. So I started studying a lot of other things, and I was drawn to acupuncture. And when I took my acupuncture course, I didn't, a lot of people are familiar with acupuncture, but they're not familiar with the fact that Chinese medicine actually has 4 branches. So acupuncture is the most commonly known. Herbal therapy is, we use Chinese herb mixes. Tui Na is sort of a massage chiropractic, and then food therapy. And so people aren't familiar with the effects, the amazing effects that food has on our body. And so really that I was so drawn to that about 80% of my patients now get some sort of food therapy. So we either add things to their diet or, and it's all with fresh whole foods. So the title of the book, Yin and Yang Nutrition for Dogs, Maximizing Health with Whole Foods, Not Drugs. Really a method to get your pets off of all those chronic medications, heal the chronic inflammatory diseases that so many of them suffer with, and do it with food, something so simple.
You know what I love about this, Dr. Morgan, is that the same thing that happens to us is happening to our pets.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, the stuff we're eating, I last year joined this online group of nutritionists that help you focus on eating clean. And it was great for me because, if I'm not with this group saying, what did you eat today? I would probably just but, it was amazing. Just 6 weeks. I started with 6 weeks of fruits and vegetables. So simple. But I felt tremendously better just adding that. And they're more like, this is not about taking away, this is about adding. And we're not used to adding nutritional food. So let's just add these to your everyday. And then what you do is you begin to crave them, as I'm sure your dogs will as well.
Yeah, so there was a great study done at Purdue University, probably close to a decade ago now, where they took dry kibble, which is actually one of the worst ways to feed our pets. It's just very convenient. But they took dry kibble and they just took away 30% of the kibble and added in 30% of the diet as steamed, fresh green vegetables. And by doing that, they actually increased health and longevity by 3 years. 3-year difference just by adding fresh vegetables.
Now, wait a second. When it comes to dogs, are they herbivores? Are they like us? Do they eat meat more? What is their diet? What should it be for dogs?
So they are omnivores. They're really more carnivores, but they can digest grains. They can digest fruits and veggies. But the reason that adding those fresh vegetables to the pet food made such a big difference is that what most people are not aware of is that dry kibble is loaded with sugar. And so, because it's loaded with carbohydrates, and carbohydrates break down to sugars, sugar is also used as a preservative. That's why when you buy processed food and it says, high fructose corn syrup or cane syrup, the healthy ones, they might have like brown rice syrup. They still have some sort of sugary substance. And that's because it's a preservative. So, you're going to get different, so the high fructose corn syrup is not obviously a good preservative, it's GMO, so there's so much sugar in the pet foods that it causes a high blood sugar, which is pro-inflammatory, causes diabetes, causes arthritis. Here, we're going to get the barking dog. Causes so many inflammatory problems with our dogs. When you add those green vegetables, it adds a fiber source that lowers their blood sugar. And so when we test the blood sugar on these animals an hour after eating, if we just feed them the kibble, their blood sugar might be 110, 120. If we add those veggies, their blood sugar will be only 70 to 80, just because their body had to work on that vegetable fiber. So it makes all the difference in the world. And so that's why it increases their life. And that's the same for us. So that's why eating processed foods shortens our lifespan, causes inflammation.
It's the exact same thing. Now, for my dog, it's interesting. I like spinach and dark green lettuce. I honestly just started liking it a couple of years ago and started adding it more. But when I give it to my dog, it's funny. I'll give him a piece of spinach. He'll be like, oh, great. He'll take it to his bed. And then he'll like bring it back and say, I'm sorry. I think you forgot I'm a dog and I only like beef.
So it's definitely an acquired taste for them because they're not used to it.
Okay.
But I literally could put a salad. Actually, I have great pictures of my dogs that I just put salads on the floor and my dogs will sit there and eat a salad. They're used to it.
Okay.
But for our pets, their enzymes to digest vegetables are not as well developed as ours are. So in order for them to really digest and get all the nutrition out of those things, we need to break down the plant cell walls. So we either do that with steaming or with grinding. So we're chopping it up really fine. If you steam it and grind it, then they're going to get all those nutritional benefits out of it.
Interesting, because I have here, I don't know if it's called Nature's Recipe, and I get for him, and I serve this in the morning, it's kind of like a broth with some vegetables in it. He loves it to death. And then in the evening, I was giving him the kibbles with the bits of dehydrated chicken. And I had no idea that was just not good for him at all. But the breakfast is his favorite because it's that soupy stuff with the vegetables, which he can tolerate more.
Yeah. And so when they're cooked and they're in that broth with the meat and so it has all that flavor. Now you also might want to read all the ingredients on there because there may be some sugars, there may be some MSG, which is hidden under different names, but there's probably some flavor enhancers in there as well. And so that's part of the problem with the pet food industry. They're really good at hiding ingredients by using weird names. So there's a hypoallergenic kibble on the market, which is actually hydrolyzed chicken feathers.
Excuse me?
It's hydrolyzed chicken feathers. So, and it sells for, $90 for a 12-pound bag of food. And people don't realize what it is that they're actually feeding. So, when I started telling people, hey, that's actually, broken down chicken feathers, that's the main thing that you're paying $90 a bag for. So I was at one of the AFCO meetings, which is the Association of Feed Control Officials, and they're the ones that define all the ingredients that can be used in pet food. And so the company that makes that food came in and said, we can't have it say hydrolyzed poultry feathers anymore because people have gotten smart and now they realize they're feeding feathers and they don't want to do that. So they just got a definition change and an ingredient name change. So now it is hydrolyzed poultry protein isolate. Now, if you're the consumer, do you have any idea that you're feeding feathers based on that? No.
Now, I heard that hydrolyzed anything is bad for, everyone actually.
Well, pretty much, yes.
What is hydrolyzed?
So that's part of the problem. Veterinarians who don't understand food therapy, don't use food therapy. They're for their dogs with inflammatory bowel disease, dogs with chronic allergies. What they'll use is these hydrolyzed proteins. So it's either soy or chicken feathers. And the argument is that when they're hydrolyzed, you break down the amino acids small enough that the body doesn't or the protein small enough that the body doesn't recognize it as an allergen or a foreign substance. It only works about 50% of the time. But because most veterinarians don't understand the power of whole foods or how to design a whole food diet, they're kind of, well, I have this prescription diet. If that doesn't work, I've got nothing else. And so then they end up treating them with a lot of steroids. And as we know, living on steroids is really bad for our health and our pet's health. So, so that's why for me, food therapy is so incredibly powerful, because I can take that same pet who, in a processed chicken might react horribly to it, but yet I can feed them real whole, either raw or cooked chicken, and they have no reaction to it. And it's the processing that causes so many problems for our pets. The other thing is that a lot of the pet foods, particularly the dry pet foods, they undergo, so if it has a meal in it, like a chicken meal or a poultry meal or a meat meal, that's undergone rendering, which is a high heat process to kill any bacteria. So the AAFCO definition of meats that can be used in pet food are supposed to be fresh whole meats minus, all the bad parts like the feathers and the hooves and the hair and the hide. And it's supposed to be only coming from animals that have died by slaughter. Unfortunately, they don't regulate that. And instead, they allow pet food manufacturers to use what is called 4D meat. So the meat that goes rotten in the grocery store or the cows that die out in the field, they're allowed to use that in pet food as long as it's cooked at high temperatures to kill bacteria. So, green rotten chicken could be part of that chicken meal. So, we all have this image in our mind when we read the label and it says chicken or chicken meal. We're seeing the Purdue oven stuffer roaster that, we're getting at the grocery store. And that's what we're thinking is in the food. But instead, it could be green, rotten, moldy, cancerous tissues that are rendered, cooked down. And the problem with that is, so there was a great story. I'm grossing out your listeners, I'm sure.
Yeah.
There was a great story out in Pittsburgh a couple summers ago where a truck hauling dead cow carcasses, it was an open top truck in August in Pittsburgh, so 95 degrees. The truck broke down in front of a car dealership. So as you can imagine, it's sitting out in the hot sun for 48 hours, and these carcasses are bloating and melting down, and the juices are oozing down the street, and the smell was horrendous. And so the car dealership had to shut down because it was so awful, nobody could even get on their block. And it made the front page of the newspapers. Well, those cow carcasses were on their way to the rendering plant to be made into pet food. So once they got the truck running, they took it on over to the rendering plant and went ahead and melted those cows down and cooked them into pet food. Now, we can all imagine the bacteria that is growing in that meat. Well, the cooking process will kill the bacteria. Unfortunately, when the bacteria die, they release what's called an endotoxin. So it's a bacterial toxin. Those toxins are also toxic to our pets.
Wow.
So our pets are eating all those endotoxins, and then we wonder why we have chronic inflammatory bowel disease, chronic, inflammatory diseases in the body in general. So it becomes a huge problem because FDA will not regulate it. We have them on tape saying, yeah, no, we're not going to enforce that. We have the law on the books, but we're not going to enforce it. And their answer to us is always, well, what would you have us do with it? Fill up the landfills? And I'm like, well, I don't really want my dog to be the landfill. So yeah. Or you could compost it. You could make that into great fertilizer. But it doesn't have to go into my dog or my cat and be their food. Wow. So one of the other problems with dry kibble is that it's only, we all think that we're buying a meat-based product for our pets. And so consumers have gotten smart enough to say, hey, I'm going to buy something that has meat as the first ingredient or the first two ingredients. But then the next three ingredients might be pea protein, pea starch, and pea fiber. So they've taken the almighty pea and they've broken it down into three separate things, and the ingredients are listed in order of predominance. So, but the problem is by the time you have three different kinds of peas, and then it might have chickpeas, and then it might have some beet pulp, and it might have, whatever else is in there, you end up with a very low meat product. So generally, dry kibble is going to have 20 to 25% meat in that bag.
Now, is peas good for your dog? Because peas is vegetable, right? Or
well, that has become actually a new problem for us. So maybe 10 years ago, the new buzzword grain-free came up.
Yeah.
And so everybody said, oh, grain-free is so much better. It'll solve the allergy problems. It'll solve the itchy, yeasty ears. It'll solve the IBD. And at the beginning, it seemed to be pretty good. And that's only because it was something novel or something new for our pets. So, 30 years ago when I started practice, we had all the itchy allergy dogs. We said, oh, we need a novel protein. So they started making the lamb and rice dog foods. Well, now those are incredibly popular. So they're no longer novel and dogs are allergic to that stuff too. So when we came up with grain-free, everybody said, oh, this will be so much better. And for a lot of dogs, it has improved because many of them don't handle wheat, corn, soy very well. But now there's a new study that came out. A cardiologist in California a year ago started seeing many more cases of heart failure in breeds that were not predisposed to it. So he did a survey. He was great. And I'm so impressed that a cardiologist would even ask questions about diet because usually that's not even on the radar. And he asked questions and he did a survey. And what he discovered is that there is now a proven link between grain-free dry pet foods and heart failure in dogs. So dilated cardiomyopathy. And we're seeing it in breeds that shouldn't have it. So he diagnosed 100 cases in a year and he said something's not right. Now, that was in June of 2017 that he came up with this. The FDA finally put a comment out on it about 3 weeks ago. Took them that long to say, oh, okay, there's a problem. Because they don't want to upset the big players in the pet food industry who kind of, they have their lobbyists and whatever. So now this has become a huge problem. So I have so many clients who, they come in and I say, okay, well, what are you feeding your pet? And very commonly I get the answer, I'm feeding a really high quality, really expensive grain-free food. So I know my pet's doing really well. And then, I have to burst their bubble and say, yeah, or he might be in heart failure. And we don't know it yet. So what it's causing is a taurine deficiency, which is an amino acid. Taurine is very, very important for heart health. Cats cannot make their own taurine, so we have to supply it in the form of meat or as a synthetic additive. And we've known that about cats since the 1980s when cats started dying of cardiomyopathy from their pet food. And so they did the research and said, oh, how about that? We better add some taurine, otherwise they die. So they figured that out for cats. Well, apparently, even though dogs can make their own, either there's not enough in the food because it's a low meat product because taurine is found in meat, or the legumes, the peas, the chickpeas, and it's also a potato problem. So grain-free foods either have sweet potato or peas, legumes. Somehow they are blocking the absorption of the taurine, and we don't know why or how yet.
Okay.
So, when I have clients who now come in and say, hey, I feed that really expensive grain-free, blah, 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 and then I have to burst their bubble. And they go, well, he's doing really well on that food. I don't want to change the food. You have two options. You either add some fresh meat to the diet so that you're getting enough taurine. And how much is enough? Good question. Or you're going to add supplemental taurine, which is cheap. So you can get it in a pill and you can throw it in the bowl. For my own dogs, my dogs either eat home-cooked, homemade raw, or I have two companies whose processed raw food I actually like, and I will feed their raw food to my dogs. But a lot of my dogs' meals are made by me because then I can do the sourcing. And if I want grass-fed, organic, hormone-free, blah, 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 I can do that. If I can't afford it that week and I say, I'm going to do the best I can this week, that's okay too. But at least I know what's going in the bowl.
Stay tuned after these messages from our sponsor, The Neat Company. Are you a small business owner or service provider looking to find a way to streamline your business's finances and cut back on time-consuming data entry? How would you like to save up to 12 hours a week on your bookkeeping? The Neat Company has a solution. As a cloud-based data entry and document management software, they allow you to easily capture all of your expenses via mobile device, direct upload, scan, or email. My favorite feature of this awesome software is using my cell phone to take pictures of all of my business expenses, receipts, and invoices. The software then reads key elements of my document and integrates them directly into my accounting software, like QuickBooks. You can then run easy-to-understand reporting of all your expenses and data. Bookkeeping has never been made easier. The best part is you'll never have to struggle again at tax time getting all of your financial information together. And Neat Company offers a number of low-cost options for businesses of any size and budget. For our savvy listeners, the Neat Company is offering a special 30-day free trial. Visit neat.com/SBR. Again, to take advantage of a 30-day free trial, visit neat.com/SBR. Yeah, I love this. My dog has acid reflux, has had it really bad since he came home. So they told me to put him on a grain-free diet, which is, all the foods, whether it's wet or dry, I was making sure it said grain-free. But you're right, it has a lot of potato, a lot of peas, which I thought were good. But that's interesting.
We all did.
Say it again?
We all thought it was good. It's apparently not.
Apparently not. But, so I am worried about him hearing this for sure, because I want my baby to stay around for as long as possible. Is it hard to get started, being that I'm not much of a cook to begin with for myself even? For me, being more healthy means eating a lot of greens and salads I can just chop up. It's raw for me. But I don't think my dog's going to go for that. He brings back my spinach leaf I give him. How do I get him into a healthier lifestyle and cook for him? Is it just grilled chicken? What do you do? I mean, I know you mentioned raw, but I'm a little antsy about using raw meat.
Yeah, a lot of people are, especially at the beginning. And making your own raw foods can be definitely a whole new ballgame. Like I had to go out and buy, a really expensive, huge grinder to be able to grind up the bones and the whole chickens, so it's definitely something that took me a lot of years of playing with some stuff and then, saying, okay, I'm going to do this, and then really investing in the freezers and the grinders and the equipment to do it. But, I'm a crazy dog mom. I've got 8 dogs. And so, and hey, it's what I do for a living, besides working, but, I talk about food, so I better do it right.
Yeah.
But for the average pet owner, the easiest way to do this, if you're somebody who's just like, I don't even cook for me, I'm very busy, I don't have time to do this. So make it simple. So if you don't own a crock pot, slow cooker. If you don't own a slow cooker, you should invest in one because it'll be your best friend. And especially if you only have one dog, this is so simple.
Okay.
And then you go to the grocery store and you find what's on sale. So I was there, I did a video on it last week. We were shopping in the grocery store. And so I went down the grocery store aisle and I was comparing price per pound of the food in the grocery store aisle, which is, much lower quality than what you'll find in the independent pet stores. But the price per pound on the food kind of blew me away. So then I went around the grocery store and I found chicken packs, huge packs of chicken, buy one, get one free. I was like, well, that's pretty good. And then I got all my veggies and everything and I threw it in my cart and I could make 10 pounds of food for $2.72 a pound, which was less than most of the processed pet food on the shelf. So I said, okay, first of all, I just saved money and I have Whole Foods in my basket.
Wow.
So I was lucky because what was on sale was skinless, boneless chicken thighs and chicken breasts. So I was like, I don't even have to debone this. This is so easy. So I took it home, chopped it up, threw it in the crock pot. I bought a container of chicken livers, threw it in the crock pot. I bought butternut squash already peeled, chopped, like ready to roll, threw it in the crock pot. I had a bunch of kale. I chopped it up, threw it in the crock pot. Some broccoli, threw it in the crock pot. So I timed myself because I was like, all right, and it ended up I made about 12 pounds of food. And I threw it in the crock pot and I looked at my watch. I said, 30 minutes. 30 minutes to make 12 pounds of food.
Wow.
Now, because we have so many dogs, it doesn't last us very long. We go through about 210 pounds a month. But, if you're the owner of 1 or 2 small dogs, you can make a lot of food on a Sunday afternoon in a very small amount of time. So I turned my crock pot on for 4 hours. When I came back in 4 hours, I took the lid off and went, wow, that is just a beautiful stew. It just melted all down. It had all that juice, and you want to use all that juice because it's got all the vitamins and minerals in there. And so I cooled it down a little bit, threw it in their bowls, and you would have thought that, I got Mother of the Year because they were just like, oh my gosh. And, and they love every meal, but it was like the first cold day of the year. And I said, they're just going to love having a warm stew tonight. So they got to eat it for a few days. But, if I didn't have that many dogs and I wasn't going to use it within a few days, I would put it in small containers and put, what I would use in 3 to 5 days can go in the fridge. The rest goes in your freezer.
Cool.
And so for one dog, well, let's see. My dogs are all between 20 and 30 pounds. And so, So 8 times 6 meals, 40. I got close to 50 meals.
Wow.
So, that'd be 3.5 weeks for one small dog,
Wow.
one 25-pound dog. So I think we can all give our dogs a half hour.
Yes.
Every 3 weeks.
You bet.
I mean, how long does it take you to go buy the kibble and then put that in a bowl?
Yeah.
It's not that much different. So I have a lot of clients, and it's funny. I have 4 books out, and the third one that we wrote was a funny one. It's called Canine Kitchen Capers.
Ooh.
And it was people who had never cooked, had never prepared food for dogs. They weren't cooks, and they sent me their funny stories about making food for dogs. So one of the clients that I coached stored sweaters in her oven. And she had never cooked in her life. She lived with her dad. She wasn't married, and she had never cooked. But I said, your dog really needs you to do this. And I have a recipe for something called Pup Loaf. It's not very hard to make. And I said, you can do this. So I taught her how to do it. And from there, she went on and took cooking lessons, and she was a vegan. So even handling the meat, she was just like, But her dog mattered enough to her that she got over the meat thing. She went and bought liver at the grocery store. She's like, can you get that in the grocery store? I don't even know about that. And so she found it. And she took the sweaters out of her oven because she had to cook for the dog. Yeah. And so, I mean, we've coached, it's funny. I do, coaching calls with people to try to help them figure out what their pet needs to eat for its particular medical problems. And, I say to people, well, can you boil water to boil an egg? And it's amazing how many people can't do that.
Really? Wow.
I know. So if you say you don't really cook, believe me, there are people who don't cook.
Yeah. Well, this is, what's happened. And this is Dr. Morgan. This happened for so many people today. They're just like, they grab and go. Yeah. That was my diet for years. So the idea of eating healthy, even a salad, is like, well, then I got to sit and I got to chew. And when I could just run and eat a sandwich or something like that.
And it's the worst thing we do. So from a Chinese medicine perspective, which is, I use Chinese medicine theory for all the food therapy and everything. The worst thing we can do for ourselves is to grab a processed, sugar-laden, GMO-filled, chemical-laden food and eat it standing up and running. And so I'm in veterinary practice. I own 2 practices. So all day at work, I mean, we're crazy busy.
Yeah.
And, I'll come home at the end of the day and I'm running in the door, and the first thing I'm doing is literally running for the bathroom. And my husband looks at me and goes, you were really busy today, right? You never went to the bathroom. I'm like, yeah, 12 hours, And so if I don't even have time to go to the bathroom, I don't have time to sit down and eat a meal. And it is one of the worst things we can do. Our digestion is so important. And really, there's a lot of moms out there who are working very hard on the forefront to say, it's time to shut down all the electronics, sit around and have a family meal and have a discussion. And they're really looking at it from an emotional standpoint.
Yes.
But let me tell you, from a health, longevity, digestion standpoint, sitting and having a conversation, chewing every bite, enjoying the flavors and sensations, and really allowing it to digest is so important for our health and longevity. So important. And we all overlook that. So one of the great side effects of me teaching my clients how to feed their pets, how to use food therapy, what the properties of different foods are. I mean, if you have swollen ankles, I can tell you what to eat to get rid of them. If you're having heart palpitations, I can tell you what to eat to get rid of that. So I train my clients, and I had a client that I hadn't seen for about a year, and she came in and I didn't really recognize her. And I thought, what is so different? I knew the dog, so I knew I was talking to the right person. And I said, you look really different. And she said, oh, she whipped a picture out of her wallet. She said, this is my husband and I when we got married. She said, when we were here a year ago, when you taught us how to prepare food for the dog and, the problems with processed food, after we did it for the dog for a couple of months, we said, we should do this for us too. They joined the gym, they changed their diet, and between the 2 of them, they lost 170 pounds.
Whoa, no.
They look totally different. So she showed me the before and after pictures, and I just went, oh my gosh. And all of that was because they love their dog enough to come learn how to cook for the dog. And it totally changed their life and how they are and what they're doing. And she said, oh my gosh, we feel so great. And like, she wanted to hug me because I changed her life. And I'm like, I just want to hug you because you changed your dog's life, you know? So,
the whole family's healthier, which is good.
Yeah.
Because if she died of a heart attack, who's taking care of her baby?
Exactly. There you go.
Well, this is phenomenal. Now, it seems to me like no matter where you are, a woman with sweaters in the oven can do it. That means pretty much anyone can get started. And I love the slow cooking idea because I've never used one, but the idea that you could just throw all the stuff in there and you come back and got a stew. Because I know my dog, Henry, he doesn't really care about the presentation or if it's all like mush together. You know, as you said, when he's had a bad day and he's gone out and had some bad poop, if I just, grilled up some chicken, a little bit of rice, he's just like my best friend because it's like actual food. He's just super excited.
Exactly.
So, I mean, how much excited could it be that you all do this for each other and cook for each other a nice meal and another crack pot with some maybe nicer presentation for the rest of the family?
Well, it's funny. When I first started doing this years ago, my son, who's now 29, he lived with us. And so as a teenager, he'd come in from school and there would always be a crock pot on the counter and he would grab a bowl full and head upstairs. And then he'd come down later and go, dinner was a little bland tonight. And I'm like, well, that's because you ate the dog's food and I don't put a lot of spices in there, honey. And I mean, he ate the dog's food all the time. And the only thing that I put in there, I mean, everything I use is obviously human grade stuff because I'm buying it at the grocery store. The only thing that I put in there that most people would kind of go, it usually has some liver or some hearts, but hearts are just another muscle meat. So there might be some kind of weird organs in there, but once you cook it into a stew, you don't even know it's there. And it's really healthy for us too. If you think about it, if you ask your parents when they were growing up, did they ever have to eat liver and onions? Yes. And you know what? It's really, really healthy. But our generation, we're like,
yeah.
No. And so, I have a Scottish heritage in the family and steak and kidney pie, and we all go, kidney? Like, I'm eating kidney, steak and kidney pie, haggis, which is tripe. I mean, there's some nasty, and tripe is stomach. It's the cow's stomach. So, but, people have eaten this stuff for generations because they understand the nutritional value of it. And, and we all make that face.
Yeah.
But, you cook it in a stew, you don't know it's there. And you go, wow, that was really delicious. And then you get told and you're like, okay, I just want to go throw that up over there.
Yeah. Well, it depends on if you learn to cook. My grandma wasn't the best cook. And she tried to trick us one time into believing that the liver she made for us was actual steak. And I was like, why does it look a little flatter? And doesn't taste the same. I was like, no, this is not steak, Grandma. But no, I totally.
Pretty much you have to hide it under a lot of onions, but not for your dogs. Dogs should not eat onions. So don't be hiding your dog's liver under onions. However, dogs love liver, so you really don't even have to hide it. They're just like, treat.
now, a raw onion I hear is really bad for that. Is cooked onion bad too, or is it just
you bad? Really don't want to. And it's really weird because onions and garlic are in the same family.
Really?
But garlic in small amounts is actually really healthy for our dogs.
Interesting.
Yeah,
how onions are.
When you look on the internet, you'll see, you see those posted lists of things that your dog should never eat. And garlic is always on there. Onions are always on there. Mushrooms are commonly on there. Well, of course, toxic, poisonous mushrooms, none of us should eat. But the healthy mushrooms are incredibly healthy for our dogs.
Oh, wow.
I use shiitake mushrooms in many, many of my dog recipes.
Oh my! I need to get your book.
Really good, healthy stuff. And so when I wrote this latest book, The Yin and Yang Nutrition, it sounds a little bit weird, because you're like, Yin and Yang Nutrition, what the heck is that? Well, it's really just talks about, the properties of the food. So if you have a dog who's too hot and they're panting all the time, like you can't sleep at night because your dog is like,
oh.
Nothing makes a person crazier than listening to their dog doing that all night.
Yeah.
Well, the dog is just too hot. He's trying to blow off steam. That's the only way they can do it. Or they're drinking excessively because they've got this little fire burning inside their body. And I'm like, I got to put out the fire. So they're drinking, they're panting. That's a hot dog. They're the ones who are trying to go lay on the bathroom cold tile floor, sprawl out, get as much body contact with it as they can because they're just hot all the time. Well, food that we feed is either going to warm up the body internally or it's going to cool it down. So everything has an energetic. So think about what you would eat if you were really hot in the summer. Watermelon, cantaloupe, ice cream. Those are all things that cool down the body. What you wouldn't want to go eat is a hot Indian dinner with curry and hot peppers. Now it will make you sweat, which will cool us off. But it's like when you're hot, that's the last thing. You're like, I am not going out for Indian food tonight. It's just not happening. So that's the effect. Now those are pretty extreme examples. But, so chicken, venison, lamb, very hot proteins. So very commonly somebody will come into me and they've got this hot panting dog that like, I can't take this anymore. You know, I just want the dog to go away because it's panting all the time. I'm like, great, what's he eating? Lamb and rice. Oh, okay. Well, we're just throwing paper on the fire. So I want you to change, even if you stick with kibble, which makes me crazy, but even if you stick with kibble, let's go to a fish-based kibble. Let's get something that's got ocean caught fish in there. Feed that for 3 weeks, come back and tell me what your dog is doing. And literally they'll come back in 3 weeks and go, wow, he's so much better. Now, he might still be panting some, but he's going to be a lot better just because we changed what we're not throwing paper on his fire anymore.
What causes acid reflux in dogs or humans?
So that's an inflammatory problem. So there's either a yeast overgrowth and too much sugar. So I actually have pretty bad acid reflux. If I eat sugar or if I eat grains, anything that's those carbs that break down. So for me, I eat meats and I eat high fiber veggies. So broccoli, cauliflower, green beans. I can't eat starchy beans. I can't eat any grains. That just makes the reflux 10 times worse because it's feeding that sugar thing that's going on down there that's churning.
Okay.
And so we find that same thing with the dogs a lot of times. If we just put them on what is a more species appropriate diet, and, you know, he might have an intolerance to one of the proteins that's in his food. So whether it's the peas or whether it's the chicken or the lamb or whatever the, you know, the base is, he may have an intolerance to that. But when we get them off the processed food and you crock pot for him, you'll probably find that 90% of it will go away just because he's on whole foods.
Wow. You know what we did try, thanks to a doctor online, is we tried putting a little bit of apple cider vinegar, like a half a tablespoon. And that did help a lot, which I was surprised at.
Yeah, it's changing the pH of what's going on. So cooking for our animals or, you know, feeding our own homemade raw foods, whatever, we do have to balance the diets. So one of the myths that is given to us by traditional veterinarians who don't really understand food and also by the pet food companies who, by the way, are trying to sell pet food, they will tell you that every single meal that you put in that bowl must be 100% complete and balanced or your dog will die. Not true. Think about what you eat. Think about what you had for breakfast. Was it 100% complete and balanced? I doubt it. Was lunch? No. Was dinner? No. Over the course of a week, do you get all the vitamins and minerals you need? Probably close. I mean, maybe, you know, some of us take a multivitamin, but, you know, if you are coloring the rainbow with your vegetables, which is what I like to do even for the dogs. So I'm like, okay, give me something orange, give me something red, give me something yellow, give me something green. Oh, look, we got all those different vitamins from all those different categories. Yay.
Yay.
And so if you're doing that over the course of a week, you are going to come darn close and you want to switch your proteins. So my dogs will eat anywhere from 5 to 15 different proteins over the course of a month. So they might have chicken, pork, alpaca, goat, beef, duck, turkey, fish. You know, there's just all kinds of things that we rotate through because we're trying to make sure that we're covering all those different amino acids. So when you look on the bag of dog food, you'll be able to pronounce the first few ingredients because it's, you know, chicken and chicken meal and peas and whatever. And then there's about 27 things that are like a different language and it's all the chemical speak. And that's literally the chemical soup. That's the multivitamin that they throw in there to make sure they're getting all the vitamins and minerals. But if you just feed whole foods that haven't been cooked to death, you're going to get all of that. The only things that I find we have to add is some sort of a calcium source because meat is higher in phosphorus than calcium. And dogs require about a 1.5 to 1 ratio of calcium to phosphorus. So the meat's the other way around. The phosphorus is high and the calcium is low. So we have to add a calcium source. So we can do that with either, there are mineral mixes that are made specifically for homemade diets, or you can grind up eggshells. And you can add a half teaspoon of eggshell per pound of meat that you use. And all this is explained in the book. There's a chapter on balancing. And the other thing that I find is commonly very low, and I find this is low even in commercial diets, is vitamin D. And we definitely have a link between heart disease and cancer and low vitamin D. So many people, if you go to a naturopath, a doctor to help you with your diet, they're going to tell you take vitamin D. None of us get enough vitamin D. We spend way too much time inside on our computers. Here we are. We don't spend near enough time out in the sun. Our dogs, even if they spend time out in the sun, they don't convert it the same way we do because they have all that hair kind of blocking the absorption.
Yeah.
So I find that many of them are low in vitamin D, just like people. So there are vitamin D supplements, or you need to make sure that they're getting enough egg yolks or fish in their diet. And that's where vitamin D comes from.
Got it.
So superfoods for our dogs, eggs. You want something simple to add to the diet, give them an egg a day. I don't care what size dog. Give them an egg a day. Cooked or raw, I don't care, however they like it. My cats like theirs over easy. They like their yolks runny. My dogs will eat them no matter how I give them to them. I'm like my cats, so I usually share. They don't even like the whites. They just want the runny yolk. But it is a superfood. So one of my old kitties, her coat was starting to look rough. Her kidney function was a little bit off. This was a few years ago. And I said, I've got to do something for this kitty. And she is raw fed. But I said, I got to do something for this kitty for her coat and make her look and feel better. So I added 1 egg yolk a day. And after 30 days, her coat was glossy, shiny. Her kidney values came down to normal. 1 egg yolk a day added to her food.
I'd love to figure out how to add egg when you're allergic to it like I am. I have problems with egg. I guess I have to go to a supplement for myself.
Well, you could try duck egg or quail egg.
Okay.
Try different eggs. Because it's interesting, most people assume that if your dog is allergic to chicken, he's going to be allergic to duck and turkey. They're different birds, so you might be fine with something different. And duck eggs are getting easier to find.
Oh, yay. Well, this has been so fascinating, Dr. Morgan. I'm so grateful you came out here to share. You're going to change my little doggie's life and my own. We're going to get a crock pot. Is that what you call them? A slow cooker?
A slow cooker.
Slow cooker. Okay.
When I wrote the book, I had crock pot all through the book. And one of the people who agreed to be a pre-sale reader for me, she said, crock pot's actually a brand, they might want to pay you money for using their name in your book. And I went, oh, what should I call it? She said, they're slow cookers. So now every time I say crock pot, I have to correct myself and go, no, slow cooker.
Slow cooker. Well, this has been truly, truly fascinating. I'm so grateful you came to share because we're about to start the new year here and people can get themselves and their dogs healthy and so they can all stick around healthily because it's not just about sticking around for ourselves and our dogs, but it's about having a great quality of life. And who wants to be sick and on meds? All of us want to be healthy. So I'm so grateful you came here. Thank you, Dr. Morgan, for coming to Savvy Business Radio.
Thank you.
Well, share before we go, share with them where they can get a copy of your book.
Well, it's available on Amazon and also drjudymorgan.com, drjudymorgan.com. And I have 4 books. They're all on Amazon and on my website, as well as all my other products.
And where can they work with you if they're around and near your facility?
So I'm in Southern New Jersey. I have 2 practices there, but I also do phone consultations for people who don't live near me. And there's information how to do that on the website, but basically we will need veterinary records. There's a big, long questionnaire that you need to fill out. So we help people with all different kinds of problems, try to figure out what supplements they need or don't need, what foods will help with the individual problems, and it's kind of fun.
Well, you're not far from me, actually. I'm in Brooklyn, New York.
Oh, yeah. We have a lot of people who come down from New York. You guys must not have very many holistic vets up there.
No, it's amazing. Well, I've not heard this amazing information anywhere else with my veterinarian either. But again, I just have to thank you for coming to share this valuable information today on Savvy Business Radio. Thank you.
Thank you.
Savvy Business Radio broadcasts worldwide via a large podcast network celebrating business owners, entrepreneurs, influencers, and successful individuals. Find out about our paid sponsorship opportunities or how to become a guest. Call 732-474-7375 or email Christina@savvybusinessradio.com.